Hi, my name is Mackenzie Wallace, and I will be doing a review on the short story Highway 18 from the book We Are Only Taking What We Need by Stephanie Powell Watts. And this is for Professor Ardell McCarver in the English 2330 W15 and W16 class. So, getting started with background information, the title is Highway 18, and I feel as though it gives away the theme of whether or not the main character will take Highway 18 as a route to escape her small town and move on to bigger and better things such as college, or if she will stay home and continue to serve her religion. For the setting and the structure, the location is a small town in North Carolina. The genre is literary fiction. The protagonist is the narrator, which is a young Jehovah's Witness, and she is unnamed. And then the antagonist, I feel as though, could be three different people depending on how the reader takes the story in. So Shelby could be considered one, Linda could be considered one, and Sarah Ann could be considered one. But if Linda and Sarah Ann were considered one, I would just put those two together and say Linda and Sarah Ann. So moving on with the characters of the story, of course, the narrator, which is a Jehovah's Witness female, and she is unnamed. Maggie Rogers, which is the narrator's best friend. Shelby, which is the well-known gorgeous girl in town. Matt and Tim, which is the narrator's co-workers. Linda, which is a rich white Jehovah's Witness and a friend of the narrator, the person that she goes door to door with, does her sales with, and all of those things. And then Sarah Donna, which is just ultimately Linda's friend that tags along. So, starting with the plot of the story starts with the narrator sharing her memories about her best friend, Maggie Rogers, who is not a Jehovah's Witness. And this is a very important detail because the narrator talks about how they've just bonded over all of these things, and she feels that she could be herself around Maggie. And I feel like that alludes to Maggie being a person that the narrator could be if she steps out and ventures farther than what her small town and religion would allow. And it shows that she kind of feels a sense of isolation and being left behind by Maggie because in this quote she says, "Still I knew that one day we would have to part ways. Me as a Jehovah's Witness with only Jehovah's Witness friends, and she with her own friends in college." So I feel like this just alludes to the facts like, yes, Maggie is moving on and going to college, and ultimately the narrator is staying back and just has to be with her Jehovah's Witness friends, and ultimately they'll split. She also talks about her job at Holly Acres Fried Chicken Shop, which is important because this is where she meets a very important character, Shelby. So when Shelby comes in, she is immediately interested in her personality, along with the attention that she attracted from Tim and Matt. So Shelby walks in, Matt and Tim are basically drooling all over her. And then the narrator is just admired by her. Like it's like this glow that Shelby has, and this just flamboyant and outgoing personality that just attracted her immediately as soon as she walked in. And she had also heard many things about Shelby around the town, but she never really just laid eyes on her and had a pure conversation with her. So the narrator and Shelby both eventually end up talking about their dreams and interests, and the narrator talks about her desires to leave the town that she's in. Shelby says she's already planning to leave, and the narrator once again feels this same sense of isolation and being left behind that she felt when Maggie was going on to college. And so it shows in this quote right here. She talks about, how she wants to leave, and Shelby is like, "Yes, I'm already planning on leaving. I want to go to Florida, this and that. I'm dreaming big. I just want to do big things in life." And so then the narrator says, "What was I thinking? The restaurant was a fishbowl full of floor to ceiling windows. Just beyond the parking lot highway 18 looked like a runway, a straight shot, launching me anywhere, or so I thought, until my eyes settled on the across the street hamburger joint and throngs of my classmates in bunches spilling out of cars like adolescent clowns, making me forget that I was in the middle of my life, in the eye of it, and forcing me to see myself from the outside." So I feel like this really touches on her feeling like she could see herself just going on Highway 18, getting out, leaving out of town for good. But she looks across at the hamburger joint and sees all the teenagers that she just can't be like because she is a Jehovah's Witness. She's not a normal teenage girl. So she has to go about things very differently. And so it's like she has to look at herself from the outside and say, wow, this is the life that I am in. I'm in the middle of it, the eye of it, so she says, and this is what I'm doing with it. So then there's a short break in the story. It basically shows like a period time gap, and the narrator contemplates about her home life, and she wants to know more about Shelby, but she's afraid to ask anyone anything because of all the rumors that go around about Shelby. So her as a Jehovah's Witness, it would look weird if she's keeping good tabs on or asking about Shelby, and she wants to be friends with Shelby, but she just can't. Once again, like I said, the narrator enjoyed conversations with Shelby, and the thought of being friends with Shelby made the narrator reconsider her life's past and things she wanted to do because, just like Maggie, Shelby was a visual representation of what the narrator could be had she stepped out of her Jehovah's Witness and took Highway 18 to somewhere new and someplace different. So it's kind of like she's reconsidering, like, wow, I could do this, I could do that, but I'm here. I'm a Jehovah's Witness, and I really wish that I could have stayed friends with Shelby, but things don't happen that way. So then we move on to introducing Linda and Sarah Donna into the story. And so Linda and Sarah Donna are two wealthy women in the Jehovah's Witness program, and the narrator usually goes with Linda to do her sales and going door to door after school and on the weekends. So when they're having their conversations about everything, Linda and Sarah Donna tell the narrator about the AIDS rumor going around about Shelby. And the narrator was excited to hear her name and have conversations about her, even though it was a negative topic. It was still giving her a sense of relief that, oh, Shelby, she's still, you know, living, she's still a person, people are still talking about her, because at this point in the story, Shelby had been gone. So then it brings us to this next point where the narrator, instead of defending Shelby, instead of, because we all know the narrator wants Shelby to be her friend. She wishes that her and Shelby have built that strong connection like she did with Maggie. But instead of defending her, she just indulges in the negative conversation that Linda and Sarah Donna are having. And she says, they called her a whore. I said, that's not what I wanted to say, but killing Shelby made me strong. They should call her what she is. Everybody knows it. Now, this is very interesting because it says, that's not what I wanted to say, but killing Shelby made me strong. So she kind of felt like Shelby had like one ups on her, right? That she was just thriving and doing good and so pretty and all the boys wanted her and so free. But instead of honing that and saying, you know what, Shelby's a good girl, she done this and that, and I know that people talk about her, and defending her, she indulged in the conversation, and it made her feel stronger. It made her feel a sense of relief when it came to the people, um, when it came to the people talking about her. And so this also goes into the narrator admiring Linda because Linda was supposed to be this wealthy woman, this successful woman, this pure Jehovah's Witness woman that wouldn't normally indulge in these type of conversations. But after all this, it's kind of, she didn't really respect or admire her as much because at the end of the day, she's talking about somebody that the narrator really admires. So moving on, it became clear to the narrator that Shelby had left town and she wasn't coming back. And whenever anybody in the town would mention her or say what she's doing with her life, it kind of made her feel a sense of like peace because she was worried about her. She was interested in what she was doing. She did want to know every move that Shelby was taking, but she couldn't because they didn't keep in contact or anything. And so whenever anybody would talk about her, they would have conversations about Shelby, the narrator will feel a sense of relief just even hearing her name. I feel as though the narrator was torn between admiration and envy because she knew Shelby was a good person. And she knew that she was more than just a whore, as she called it. And she valued herself at her as a friend. She wanted to be friends with Shelby. She wanted to be like Shelby. She wishes that she could have left the town and went somewhere big and just done bigger and better things. So that's where the envy comes in, because it's like she doesn't have this sense of feeling like, okay, Shelby, be feeling like Shelby and being free and just doing what she wanted to do. So moving on to the major theme of the story, I feel as though the theme is life's perspective can be shifted based on how a person feels about themselves and their identity. So there's 3 points that go on with that. The narrator does not know who she is, and being around people like Maggie and Shelby forces her to take a deep look within herself and what she wants to do. She also has to focus on her religion, which doesn't give her the freedom to make the same decisions that other people around her make, such as Maggie going to college and Shelby going to Florida, and even the teenagers that were hanging out at the hamburger joint across the street, just frolicking around and just being teenagers, honestly. And so it's just hard on her because she doesn't have really a sense of her own identity outside of being a Jehovah's Witness. And then also, Maggie and Shelby leaving the town negatively affected her because she feels isolated, she feels left behind, and the people that she felt closest to were leaving her. So now she has to settle for these Jehovah's Witness friends that don't really understand her, that don't really know her like that, when she's had people like Maggie and Shelby come into her life and show her that things could be different. So that is my just overview of the whole story. My rating for it is a 7.5 out of 10, and I would recommend it to people for two people for them to read. I just feel as though I wish we had seen what happened with the narrator, or what happened with Shelby, or what happened with the Jehovah Witness women. Like, I feel like there could have been some type of conclusion, but I also appreciate the author doing that, because now it's left up to the reader's imagination and what does the reader think, could happen at the end of the story. So once again, thank you, and this has been my presentation.